Will Harris, who's joining us from France, and Cova, who's actually joining us from Cape Verde. And we have our special guest, Malizian here, Chris Pratt, Chris from Marseille, joining us from actually from Greece this time, right? A little island as well. For those of you who are recognizing Chris, that's because he was with us on leg 4 of the ocean race from Brazil to the USA, with Will as your skipper at that point. And you've also come with quite a history in Amoca. You've co-skippered with Charelle and with Armel Leclerc, and also more recently with Holcim. So I think you can give us lots of insights into all the boats out there, right, Chris?
Yeah, I'll try.
And Chris is also a weather and routing specialist as well, so he can add anything to Will's expert opinions as well out there.
We're definitely going to get Chris's insight later for sure.
So we have a little, to jog everyone's memories, if they don't remember Chris, we have a little video here summing up Chris in our leg 4. Here you go. Some nice contrasting moments there, Chris.
It was wonderful memories.
Yeah, super nice that you're back with us now. It's great to see you. We're going to kick off with a little tradition that you maybe remember from the podcast with Rosie. But how is everyone feeling from 1 to 10 today, and why? You can start, Chris, as our guest today.
I think I'll go for a 9 because I'm in holiday in a little island in Greece which called Ikaria, and this is a place where my father and his boat is living, so we just joined him for the week, and I'm with my wife Amandine and my baby Liam, so we spent the day at the beach. It was nice, so let's go for a 9.
Super nice. Okay, we're going to go to Cole because often you're also in a 9 zone. So how are you today, Cole?
I'm a 9. I'm pretty close to a 10. I've been on shore for the last couple days, and so I've had a massage, and I've been able to actually get my hair fully clean and do some shopping and check on the boat. So yeah, I'm a 9, and I'm leaving tomorrow. So yeah, I'm a 9.
Super nice. And Will, how about you?
I think I'm going to complete the trio here and go for a 9 as well. I think it's been a good week here in France, and I'm really much enjoying Boris gaining lots of miles on the tracker. That's always puts a smile on my face. I think the thing I'm missing for a 10 is I'm not on a nice hot island like you three. Chris is in Greece, I was in Cape Verde, and I think you're on a Canary Island as well at the moment, Holly. So I'm missing that at the moment, but pretty good.
Nice. I'm also up there. I think I'm a 9.5, and I've gone back to my routine of like checking the tracker every hour, even though it doesn't update every hour. I'm back in like ocean race mindset of hourly updates, so it's super exciting, I think, to follow and see Boris gaining the miles. So yeah, very nice, very fun weekend. We have to spare though a little thought maybe for Boris, because the conditions are pretty rough from what I saw out there. We got a video from him earlier today, and I think at the moment it's like 6 a.m. for him, roughly. So it will be getting light, I guess, very soon. But we have a little video we will play now, which shows a little bit what it's like out there for him.
Just good luck for the night. And then the rough day will be tomorrow and after tomorrow. Still almost 50 knots in the gale. Ciao.
Oof.
Full on, huh? I think it brings back some memories. So.
Yeah, it looks pretty full on, huh? So I think everyone at home, send Boris nice messages. He does read them, put them in the chat. I think he needs a little bit of I think he's enjoying it, but it's intense, I guess. What do you guys think from seeing that?
Yeah, definitely. It looks very familiar, and I think that you can never really avoid the 50 knots because they become part of your daily routine, where it's like your lulls are in the 30s, and that's something that, like, when you're sitting, on a mooring somewhere in a beautiful place like Cape Verde, that doesn't exist. Like 50 knots doesn't exist, and so it's really hard to understand it. But in the Southern Ocean, it's like very, very normal, but also very intense for the boats.
Definitely.
I think
Yeah,
I'm not
for sure.
jealous of probably how cold it is right now. And I think one thing that's interesting with this situation at the moment is normally they've been downwind in the bigger storms, and at the moment they're on a reaching angle. So it's great because it means you just go straight down the course. You can just have the wind on your side and you're going straight where you want to go. But I think I saw Sam Goodchard saying earlier how it makes it a lot more challenging, and the skippers have to be a lot more alert because when you're reaching, it's much harder to control the power. When you're foiling downwind, you can just bear away and go more towards where you want to go to control the boat. Whereas when you're reaching, the boat can launch off. It can, a little gust, a slightly different shaped wave, and so that makes it really tough to kind of keep the boat balanced. You want to be making the most of going as fast as possible, but also, yeah, not break the boat basically.
Not wiping out, yeah, for sure. We're going to do a little bit different this week, right? We're going to do weather with Will first because that plays quite a lot into the conversations we're going to have afterwards, and all about like the tactics, what's happening on other boats, or what do we think is happening on other boats, and what position could Boris be in the future. So take it away, Will.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we'll get straight into it. So like we were talking about, this is the current tracker situation. It's super nice on the tracker as well that you can do the 3D image. This is the sort of global map view, so you get a bit of better perspective of where the boats are actually trying to go to, and how it's always shorter to be sailing along the ice exclusion zone here like this. But anyway, right now what they have is the defining features is kind of these lows over here. It's mostly defined by this big strong front, and you've got the sort of semi-permanent Australian high over here, which has been pushed right over here. And what it's meant is all these boats here that were quite ahead of Boris, quite ahead of Boris. If we think back to last week, they were all 350 miles ahead of him. They've been stuck. They've been blocked by this high pressure. The front three boats have managed to get away, but Boris, Justine, Sam, and Clarice have all managed to really shut down that gap. And now I think Boris is, I think it's about 50 or 60 miles behind Paul Mayhat there. So, it's really close, and the racing's got much closer. And we can just have a look at those different weather situations here. So you've got these low pressures over here, that cold front that's kind of bringing that strong wind, and you can see these isobars. When the isobars are really close together, like this, it's indicating that you've got really strong wind. So, as we know, the weather systems rotate in the other direction in the southern hemisphere. So the wind's going around like this, and you can see here, this is the ridge, which is blocking that red group of boats from staying up with the top three boats. So it's been a really defining moment in the race, really interesting, and it's always good to look back at what's happened the last few days. And if we think back to last week's weather, I think we sort of said that fourth to eighth place were in real danger of getting dropped. And we saw Tom Orient and a few of the other boats really getting stuck and having to wait for these other boats to catch up with them and bring this new wind in. But if we have a look at what's going to happen ahead, so this high pressure is moving this way. We can see it here. This is 24 hours time with the ECM model. And basically the fleet is trying to stay ahead of this front. This is this really strong wind that we're talking about. And what's happening, this is only a sort of 200 or 300 mile gap. And right here by the front, you have 45, 50 knots. Whereas sort of 200 or 300 miles ahead over here, in it sounds like quite a big area, but it's actually quite a small amount of space in the Southern Ocean. You have sort of 20 to 25 knots, which is much more optimal. So those boats ahead, more in sort of that red group, they're going to be able to sail faster because they've got flatter conditions as well. This is the wave situation. So Boris, Justine, they're much closer to this much larger sea state, sort of 6 to 7 meters. Whereas those boats slightly further ahead, they'll be able to sail faster with only 1 or 2 meter waves. And then these boats, Charlie, Johan, and Seb Simon, they're right ahead of the system, so they're in really nice conditions at the moment, and they look relatively untouchable for the next few days. If we look at what happens over the next 3 days, so that high pressure is moved all the way over from New Zealand, so it's over here. It's going to be the defining feature of the western part of the Pacific, and basically that ridge is sort of starting to change shape as the low pressure in that front has gone underneath them. It's actually over here now at this point, in 3 days' time, and basically the fleet has to try and sneak come underneath the high pressure. So they're really going to hope that this high pressure doesn't move further south and block their route. It could happen. And basically, it's a slightly better situation again for those boats behind. So Boris and Justine might be able to catch up even more miles to that 4th to 7th place. But still, we're going to see quite a big gap between 4th and 3rd place. And we're going to have to wait for later on to see if there's any opportunities to catch up for Cape Horn. There you go.
Super nice.
A lot happening. A lot happening.
Yeah.
There's so many different scales. There's sort of the day-to-day of racing against the boats that are 20 miles away from you. There's a big group of boats, but there's also the bigger picture things. Looking at the fact that 1st to 3rd is in a totally different weather system to those other boats behind, and the track has been very exciting to watch.
Definitely. Yeah, it's been, I mean, we got news also this morning that Pip, of course, has lost her mast, dismasted early hours of this morning. That was, I guess, a big blow and not really something you can come back from. I mean, she can now stop and, pull in and decide how she continues. But have you guys experienced that before? And what do you think her plan will be? I guess Australia, but what's your guys' thoughts on it? Maybe Chris, go on.
Okay. No, I never have a dismasting in this type of boat. I dismasted just once in the Mum30 on the Tour de France à la voile. So it was just a little small boat, but it's already an experience. I think in IMOCA it's just quite impressive and also devastating, and it's maybe the worst place to have it in the middle of Indian Ocean. So now she had to go to Australia with an injury rig, and for sure it's really tough for her. And she did such an amazing race. She sailed so well. So I'm really sad for her, but for sure she will be back for the next campaign and show again how strong she is.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've lost the mast on the Class 40 that I sail, or that I just sold, and during the Caribbean 600, and it was, I mean, I was only 80 miles like away from port, and I had like plenty of fuel, and I didn't have to do a jerry rig, and I really couldn't get the mast back on. So it's actually really commendable that she was able to get the mast back on and do a jerry rig. And in that video, she talks about how she spent, 3 hours doing a cleanup. That's really, really quite commendable, where a lot of people usually take a moment to actually be quite solemn, and she seems like she just jumped right back into it. And that's a lot of these skippers in this race. Everyone understands the risks that you get into doing something like this, and I think she handled it quite professionally.
Definitely. And how about you, Will? Ever lost the mast?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I'm remembering, Chris, is actually leg 4 of the ocean race, and when we saw those boats, I think it was Holcim and Guyot, Benjamin Dutroux, both losing their masts in that leg 4. And
Yeah.
I think it's really sad for Pip. It's devastating that it's happened to her Vendée, but I think these other skippers are going to be a lot more tense now as well. They're going to be feeling really worried about, okay, it's possible for this to happen to anyone, and I think it can really affect a lot of the skippers mentally. So they've got to try and deal with that, and some skippers might feel it more than others, but that's another point to think. And when we saw those other 2 boats losing their masts in the ocean race, I think we were definitely checking the mast and really taking it cautiously after that. So it might take a bit to get back into your normal sailing routine, especially when it's windy.
Yeah, definitely, especially with the wind coming for them. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And what do you guys see, like, a bit with the race at the moment? We have this front group of 3 boats breaking away. Is there even a chance to catch them? We have this group, we're now in the second group. what's to play for here in a maybe a less what's the word, less weather, less routing terms, but more like what you guys are seeing and feeling.
Let's go, Will.
Okay, all right. I was waiting for Chris's input. But okay, right.
Yeah, you're the specialist.
I go first, right? So I think as we looked at the weather, without going too much detail, it's that balance of pushing and staying in that really nice weather situation where you're coming up to that high pressure. I'm talking about the second group of boats. If they can stay ahead, I think it's Thomas and Nico who are really pushing. They're doing 25 knots at the moment. Jeremy's doing 25 as well. They might even break the record tonight as well. Again, but I think, yeah, it seems to be a lot of that in this one day. But I think really trying to push for every mile now might really help out to open up the opportunities for the future. It was really interesting to see how Johan managed to join that new pack, that front pack, and Tomo got split off when only a week ago they were next to each other. So I think it brings up a couple of things. Firstly, are they having any technical issues that they're not saying about? Is Tomo did he have some sort of issue earlier, which meant that he slowed down a bit to Johan, and it might have actually cost him quite a lot. So I think it's always interesting to be looking at the tracker and spotting the speeds of the boats. If there's a boat 20 miles away from them that's doing 5 or 6 knots faster, then kind of makes you wonder, what's going on there? Are they missing a sail? And I think when we're watching the tracker, like always looking for these little things and what's going on. It's not always with the boat. It might, the skipper might be struggling at the time as well. It could be anything really, but it's always an interesting time.
Yeah, I wonder what it is that really stops the skippers from really being quite vocal, because we've seen that, the skippers that are more vocal and more open are more the ones that get the sponsorship, get the followership, get everything, and so if you're, if that's how you continue on, why don't you spill the beans? Why don't you talk about it openly? How some skippers are not as vocal, and it really does kind of harm what I think the race, because then it just keeps everything secret, and the race is trying so hard to become big, and the skippers don't say anything. So definitely. I don't know.
Boris is not one of those skippers. Boris says
no, he's definitely
sometimes
not.
Too much.
There's no secrets with Malizia,
yeah. Exactly. Sometimes I'm like, Boris, are you sure? He's like, yeah, let's tell everyone everything. I'm like, okay, great.
We'll deal with it later.
Exactly. I like that, to be honest. I think this being open, being honest, but then it is fun as well, maybe to play the game and see who you think, us to play the game, watching the tracker, to see who you think is having a problem, who's struggling. I mean, Chris, we spoke about it a bit earlier, but what's your feeling at the moment? Like, who do you think might be having issues if you were like a betting man on this?
My first feeling is that we wait this situation happening for like a week. The close back from the group of Boris to the fourth place group. So it's really nice that now it happened, and we know that now Boris can play again with this front pack. So that's the first thing. I'm so happy for him, because for sure he deserves to be in this front pack and not around the 10 or like 10 place or more. And the second thing is, yes, we never know what happened on each boat, but for sure the 3 boat that making that making me some question are first Thomas, because I really think that there is something wrong with Thomas, and I don't know what. I don't know if it's a foil or maybe pilot systems or maybe sail set. I don't know, but for sure it's weird that he lose Johan on this last week. So I think there is something.
Oh, you've frozen for a minute there, Chris.
I think the skippers have better internet in the Southern Ocean than we do back at home.
On our islands.
Yeah.
No,
exactly.
I think we wait for Chris to come back, but one of the other ones he was questioning right earlier was Charlie, because Charlie was really far ahead, and in the last 24, 48 hours. Oh, do you hear us again, Chris?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry. Internet connection in a little island.
No worries.
Um,
We heard about Thomas, and I
yeah,
spilled the beans a little bit about Charlie. So maybe you want to continue
yeah,
with
yeah.
Charlie.
Charlie maybe also it's just a question of the type of boat. I mean, his boat is really designed for the transition zone, for the upwind, and is struggling a bit, I think, compared to Johan design in wavy and bumpy conditions. So maybe it's just that, and that's why Johan is managing to close the gap that much, and also because of the weather, like we'll explain a bit earlier in his perfect weather analysis. And then the last boat is also Jeremy, because I saw some weird face with Nico. I know really well the Nico's boat because I work a bit with him, and for me it seemed weird that he stayed with Nico for so long, like almost 3 weeks, and even on the typical condition of Charal, he didn't manage to really make some distance with Nico. So maybe he's struggling a bit also in like a sales issue or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I think
Super
I've
I
nice.
don't know what you think about what you're thinking about this, Will, but
yeah, I've got one other point, and so from the last Vendée Globe, what one thing we did was list down all the problems that just because it's a good exercise to then remember in
yeah,
4 years.
it
Okay,
is.
this is all the problems that these skippers had. If we go through the top 5 boats, so we had Charlie. He finished the race with straps around his foils, holding it together, and he had to climb
Yeah.
out and fix the foils. Louis Berton was the next one to finish, and his boat was on fire, no electronics,
Yeah,
a total mess. And he had one autopilot and one battery working. And then it was Yannick Besteven. He was missing loads of his sails, and the pulpit, the kind of
yeah,
stanchions on the front were all ripped off. And then we had Thomas. He was missing a bowsprit. So
And a
no,
foil.
and a foil.
foil, sorry,
And a foil.
but
And
the
a foil.
well, he did talk about though. This is all kind of secret stuff that was happening
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
boat.
yeah, you're right.
Find out about to the finish, and then obviously there was Boris, but he told everyone. But it was the last night of the race when
Yeah.
he had his damages. But it's going to be the same at this finish as well, I think, and I think it's a really important thing to remember as the skippers that you might be having issues on the boat, but you got to remember that all these other skippers are going through their own problems, dealing with their own things, and you just got to hope that yours aren't as bad as theirs, I guess. And and it's for us at home, it's really interesting to try and pick out and point, I wonder what's going on with them today. What are they, maybe some things they want to share and other things not so much.
They don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's for good reasons. Sometimes it's good to keep secrets because then your competitors don't know you're weak, but also it's nice to share the story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, and if you're right next to somebody, right, and they know that now you've like lost one of your big Gennikers overboard or something like that, and you expose it, then they're like, oh, I'm going to put up my biggest Genniker just so I can get in front of you and then grab that next system and go. And so it does make sense for a shorter standpoint, like what I think is a little short-sighted, but that's just me.
No.
Also, it's mindset, right? Like it maybe puts you in a more positive mindset, or it's someone else's downfall maybe, but it makes you feel like, okay, I can get ahead of them, and maybe that mindset pushes you on. I think that would be my feeling.
Exactly.
We did see some. Sorry.
So one of the I imagine the other skipper is sharing their problems, and then they're still going faster than you when your boat's fine. Like that would also could be the other way. You're like, oh, I'm still slower than this guy, even though he has more problems. But
that's what I did in my race, and I felt like it worked. I was like crying because I had some problems with the boat or whatnot, and then like the guys and my competitors were like, I just don't understand, but she's still faster. And it was like, yeah. At my lowest point, I'm still pushing, but just like struggling, like normal, ripping your hair out type of struggling that you feel racing across the Atlantic or racing, across the equator anytime.
We also saw, I think, some of the boats obviously are communicating about the issues they've had. I know Sam Davies, right, was communicating about having like a
Yeah.
full blackout. Maybe one of you guys wants to just explain for people that don't know what that means. I think Thomas Rion also said he had a full blackout. What is a full blackout when you're sailing?
Full blackout mean that you have no energy at all. So it means you have no autopilot, no electronics, no informatic, and it also means that the kill system, the counting kill system, doesn't work anymore. I struggled with this in my Route du Rhum in 2010, and I spent 5 days without energy at all. It was no wind, so it was not dangerous, but it was totally crazy because I just had to steer the boat like Figaro, you know. So I can't imagine what it can be in the Southern Ocean when you experience a blackout. So I think maybe it's a worst thing that can happen in this type of boat for sure. And maybe Will, you can add something to this because you were like a specialist of the electronic during the Ocean Race campaign, and you always managed to fix all the little problems we had on the leg awards. But I assume you can add something to this.
Oh, yeah, I think I'm in the same boat there, Chris. Like, I couldn't imagine experiencing everything gone like that. I think it's, yeah, it's like you say, it's pretty much the worst thing that can happen, except for
Yeah.
maybe losing your mast or something. But like, you imagine being solo on your boat, your autopilot is steering you, and suddenly it crashes out, and the first thing you want to do is turn your lights on, or cant the keel to get everything back under control, and nothing turns on. So
And you've got nothing.
yeah, that would be the worst thing. I think it's a lot of it's preparation. We have always had 2 backup systems with the autopilots and things like that. But I guess the bigger problem is when you have a battery issue.
Yeah,
When it's
exactly.
on Malizia we have 10 different batteries, so hopefully they're not all gonna go out at once. That's kind of the idea, that maybe you might have a fault. It's very unlikely, but a fault with a few batteries, but just not all of them at once. But it can happen. You can get overloads, and
Yeah.
especially with these foiling boats now, it's really tough. But
And maybe add something about this. You have to imagine that when it's all blackout, you can't do anything. Like you can't furl the sail because the boat is just struggling out, and you are like 80 degrees hill. So it means you can't do anything. The first thing you got to do is fixing the battery problem and hope that during this time you're not gonna broke something else, like explode a sail or something worse. So no, it's really crazy to experience this. I think.
have you ever had a blackout, Cole?
I did. Yeah, I did on the race. It was short. And it was my solar system, because I didn't see sun for 2 months. And then I got out and went around the Falklands on the first day, like out of the Southern Ocean. It blew every fuse in the entire boat, just like tried to catch everything on fire. But my batteries have like a BMS system, like a battery monitoring system. And so the batteries, to protect themselves, they just shut everything down. So instead of like harming batteries and catching them on fire, like what they used to do, only a couple of years ago, they shut everything off. And so I was like sitting there, like making coffee, and all of a sudden, like the whole boat just went bloop, and it like makes a sound. It goes bloop, like all the electronics like make a goodbye sound, and then they shut
Oh no!
you're like,
yeah.
you're like holding
Critical
your jet
battery,
oil, like, and the boat just starts turning. You're like, oh, okay. Well, I'm glad I'm not in 30-foot waves or anything, and I'm just. The Falklands are 100 miles away or something. So if anything, I could just like maybe steer and then sleep and then steer and sleep or whatnot. But then I called my electronics guy on the sat phone, because you lose everything. And I called him, and he was like, just start pulling all the fuses out and replace them, because I had a whole spare box of every fuse, and everything was labeled. So I knew exactly where each fuse went. And once they were all switched, turned everything back on, and it went back on. I was like, oh, thank God. But you sweat a lot. You sweat a lot. You go through everything. Yeah, you get a little extra gray for sure.
It's like hard to imagine. I think I'm even stressed when we get like a power cut in the house. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't cook dinner now.
Yeah, and your water maker. So like the water maker that like I have, and so does Boris, it has a manual function on it. But like I really had never trained in it. So like I have my manual now like taped to the side of the water maker, and like the handle is then taped right there, and there's a bunch of arrows, just like
Nice.
because it's if you're really far away, you need to be able to make water, and if you don't have a battery system, you can't actually make water.
For
Right,
sure.
it's super important.
The thing I've heard though with this manual pump though is it takes so much energy that you
Yeah.
end up
Burn.
sweating
That you sweat more than you need to drink.
You
So it's like it's a slight flaw in the system. So hopefully,
yeah,
fingers
it's
crossed,
all
we
like,
don't have this.
you know, they make
Yeah.
it like these engineers make it with the idea that they will never be the person in that experience. So
Yeah.
Just hope it rains.
As usual.
as usual, yeah.
So I'm going to play a little video, guys, of Boris on deck at night. 1 second. So I find this super cool, this view. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it really allows people to see a bit like what it's like at night trying to do this on your own, you know. We feel like a little spy watching over Boris. I mean,
Yeah.
what is that like, solo sailing? How hard is it to do what he's doing? I mean, I think people don't realize, for instance, how heavy these sails are, you know. He's got to get them out of this locker. What's that like?
A lot of halyards.
Well.
A lot of halyards. A lot of time. Takes time. Everything
Yeah.
takes
Yeah,
time.
how
I
long
think-
does it take to do that sail change, for instance?
I think probably like between two head sails, like you're looking at a solid 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Which
Of like continual work, right? It's like a full workout,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't know if you guys agree as well, but the one thing that can be, you know, imagine you have to go on deck in the middle of the Southern Ocean and it's 5 degrees and it's
It's
super
night.
windy and cold. The thing that is always super important with these sail changes and maneuvers when you're trying to, you know, you've had to slow the boat down a lot as well to do it, to keep it safe. But when you have to make sure you do everything you want in the cockpit before you go on deck. Because
Yes.
imagine you forget to like untie one of the sheets or something like this, then you can be on the foredeck all ready to go. You're all clipped in, and then I've got to go back to the cockpit now and check this. So
shit.
yeah, I think stuff like that you just have to be like it's one of the it's if you do a good maneuver, it doesn't matter if it's wet and windy and cold. If you felt like you did it fast and you did it quick, then you feel good, I think. Whereas if you do
Yeah.
it badly, then it annoys you even more because at first you're wet and cold, and then secondly you've gone slower than you wanted. But it looks like Boris was doing a good job there.
Yeah,
Well,
I
and
think
it's like you can't like stop. I think so many people think you like stop and like smoke a cigarette and like hang out and make food or something, but it's like once you start the maneuver, like you have to complete the maneuver because you're actually in more of a precarious position because now you have a sail that's like halfway open, and yeah, the bag is like kind of holding it on. Like all of it needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. There is no like stop, I need to change my mind. It's that sail's going up whether you want to or not, because it's safer up than it is partially on the deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing that you have to imagine, if you don't do a thing correctly, things can turn into a catastrophe really easy. If you don't anticipate enough, you can have a problem with the furling system, or when you drop down the sail and it fall down in the water, or more important, you get injured because the furler system is not released enough when you go on the foredeck. So it's just little details and anticipation. And if you miss something, it can turn to a catastrophe. And so it really means that you have to anticipate a lot. And it doesn't matter if you lose a bit of time. The important is to be sure to do every step of the maneuver correctly, to be sure that you don't have to go back to the cockpit or struggling with a problem while you are doing this maneuver. And it's really different when you're doing solo-ended than double.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We've lost
Oh.
Chris, but I
Yeah.
agree. I think to
Yeah,
add to
yeah.
his point, right? one thing can follow after another as well, right? Like if you have one fuck up, it's like the next one comes, then the next one comes. It's like
Yeah.
normally it's not, yeah, they kind of have this domino effect from what I've
Yeah.
seen anyway.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think the
and
hardest thing, that video there was, it could be like 4 a.m. or whatever. Imagine having to wake up out of your bed and go straight into like not making sure, okay, do the best work of my life right now in this next 45 minutes, but I'm doing it at 3 a.m. or something like.
Yeah,
Yeah. At night, it always makes it harder as well, I think, because you
definitely.
can't see where the halyards are going or stuff like this. So.
And
Yeah.
this video gave us a nice view maybe of the outside of the boat, and people are quite used to seeing our boat inside, which has a more dry, enclosed feeling, and maybe people say more comfy. We had it called the party bus in the ocean race. But
Yeah,
maybe, Chris,
it was.
it was. Chris, you've probably been on the most AMOCAs or sailed on the most variety of AMOCAs. What's your like feeling when you see the other teams at the moment, when you see the Malizia? Like, what's your take on it in respect to the other boats?
I know how hard it is to sail in the other IMOCA, and I know how good is to sail on Malizia. So for sure, it make a huge difference in term of comfy and also in term of how Boris is gonna feel on the next few days and on the next week. So it's gonna make. I'm sure when they raise the ocean race leg, their face were just amazingly perfect compared to the other teams, and it's gonna be the same for Boris. I'm sure, even if on each boat there is a lot of progress that have been done inside the boat. They all have special seats, etc. But for sure, it's not as comfy as Boris have. Maybe the other boat which is as comfy as Boris, in my opinion, is Johan boat. And maybe also Charlie. I didn't saw exactly how Charlie inside boat is, but I can imagine, and I can imagine the only thing that I don't like in this boat is he can't see anything in the front because he's got no windows at the front of the cockpit. But it looks like that the back of the boat is pretty comfy with the sleeping zone and the seat in front of the chart table, which looks pretty similar than that we have in Malaysia.
Yeah, no, definitely. I fully agree. And I think Cole's tips on the comfort side as well. Boris said that his best thing he bought has been the electric blanket. He keeps telling me about it every time we talk. He talks about that blanket. He's like, it's the best thing. It's better than the heater. It's better than anything.
It's
amazing.
It's so comfortable. Like people don't like I had it in my van, and all the racers that I met were like, no, it's too much weight, it uses too much power. And I was like, yes, all true, but you can use it as a regular blanket without it even plugged in, and you wrap yourself up in it, and then if you get cold in the middle of the night, you just click the button and it turns on, and you use it for a couple hours in the night. And especially after a sail change, like your feet are always either cold, sweaty, like damp, and it's the only thing that dries your feet, which drying your feet in the Southern Ocean is incredibly important. It can change your entire outlook on life.
You're
if
right.
You have dry feet and you didn't just have to like soak yourself in baby powder, which is, not that comforting.
Definitely. We're actually talking of interesting conditions. This was on a different boat, on Freelance from Garrick, and I saw the video and just thought people need to see it if they haven't. So here you go. Yesterday.
Oh, attention! Oh là 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 là!
I love the French excitement in this. Chris, how French is this video?
No,
So
I
good,
mean,
I
for sure the la 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 is just amazing. But what is amazing, for once we can see how high is the waves and how amazing it is, because most of the time when we see video, the perspective is just not that we saw in real.
Yeah.
And you can't really imagine when you see the video how high are the wave, and in this video we can see the wave is pretty high.
Definitely. It
Yeah.
looks crazy. I think like a lot of people really get the feeling then, yeah, what is this race? And I think that's also like the last kind of main topic is how are these boats experiencing this like big weather system differently? Because of course it hits at a different time. It hits from the back, hitting the pack. So yeah, do you guys have a bit of an insight how this is hitting each of those groups?
Yeah, I think it's I mean, firstly in that video, like you see the water when the spray is going over the ocean like that, it's like insanely windy, like really windy. So, and yeah, I think it's a good point. The fleet is like, I mean, if we go all the way back to Javi, he's 7,000 miles back. He's not gone past Cape Horn yet. The separation in the fleet is half a planet now. You know, Charlie, he's in the morning, and Sabi, he's in the evening, the day before. So, the weather systems are going to be totally different for each group, and that firstly it brings up that sort of snakes and ladders where they all compress together, like we're seeing with between Boris and Toma, and then it's also opening them up as well. But in each of these different groups, they've got their own little battles, and around Gurek, he's going to be racing with those other boats, dealing with these different conditions, and I guess you end up seeing the strengths and the weaknesses of each of the skippers as well, of how okay, right, we've got a super strong weather system here, who's a really good sailor in these tougher conditions, and then okay, it's a high pressure situation, who's a bit more developed for these sorts of areas. And yeah, I think that's what makes it such an amazing race. You can have 0 knots and you can have 70 knots. Like it's such a range, and you're going to see everything.
Definitely. And all the different generations of boats as well, right? We even see that, some are, even the old boats are better in some conditions. And I mean, not in this edition of the race, but in the last edition, we saw like the non-foilers doing really well. And now, of course, we have the total opposite, basically. Yeah, super nice.
What I find really interesting also is the balance the place where you put the cursor, because some guys or girls choose to be more north, meaning that they have for sure they have low pressure system, but they always have the chance to escape to the north and to have less wind and less waves, and when you are heading to the south and try to be as close as possible from the exclusion zone, you are more exposed to a violent system because you're closer from the low pressure, and so we see it at the front of the fleet with Charlie and Seb, and then we see it also with at the back of the fleet with Guirec, I think Louis, which choose to be really south, but for sure they have more wind and more waves, and it's really a question of how do you want to manage your full Southern Ocean experience, and you can see that there is really different type and perspective between the skipper. Some have a lot of experience, like Jean Le Cam, stay really north and it works. Some also had a lot of experience and stay south. So I really question myself, what do I do if I was in the Southern Ocean? What kind of decision I will take basically in this big question, which is, do I want to stay north, or do I try to stay as south as possible to go to have less route as possible? So I don't know.
Reward question, right? How much risk are you willing to take for?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Super interesting. Yeah, it's a very good point. We could analyze that, maybe looking at everyone's tracks, Will, and seeing who are the biggest risk,
the risk takers.
Yeah, I mean, some of them we know already, but it's interesting to look at. Guys, we're coming to the end of the show, so we're going to do a very quick promo section, but this time it's a little bit different. We're actually going to promote a race. So what race would you most like to compete in, which you either have or haven't done. You can be a race you've already done or not. So which race would you most like to compete in? We're going to start with Will, although this may be obvious, but we're going to start with Will.
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure it has to be this one we're watching right now, the Vendée Globe. You know, it's the ultimate challenge. It's the Everest, and for sure it's been on my goal list for a long time. You know, it's something I'm always working towards, and you know, I'm so lucky to be with Malizia and to get to experience and develop you know, to learn enough about this race to hopefully have a shot at doing it myself one day. And yeah, I think there's no other challenge out there. I think that's quite like it. But also the technical side of it as well. You know, it's until you actually, I never really realized that side of it until I actually first started sailing IMOCAs, was how interesting the boat development and the preparation before the start line, how important that is. You know, if I'm really thinking about it, the preparation for 2028 it starts now. You know, this is the first big learning. It's watching what happens in this race. And so you have to, the longer you have to prepare for it, the better chance you have of finishing firstly and then doing well. So, yeah, I think that one was quite obvious.
But still a good answer. I liked it. And Chris, how about you?
I think you will ask me the question 1 or 2 years ago. I will go for exactly the same answer than Will, because I participate, as you said before, with on the preparation, because I was pair skipper for Armel and then for Jeremy, and so my whole life was dedicated to being at this race one time. But now, after the short ocean race experience I had with the Malizia team, if you ask me which one do you choose, I'll go for the ocean race, because the experience of having stopovers and also being in the team, it was just so amazing. So I'll go for the ocean race, and it's so important to me to be in the next ocean race. So that's the next goal, and if there is the ocean race and the Vendée Globe, it's okay also.
Nice. And how about you, Cole?
So of course it's the Vendée and the ocean race, because I haven't done either, and I haven't had the amazing opportunity that I will with Malizia, and so I am super excited about that. I also have always in the back of my mind, being American, we see the Jules Verne, and we see this amazing, like, record-breaking thing, and it's always been so unattainable for a lot of Americans, and so I don't know, maybe I'll be the Pip Hare that does the Jules Verne, you know, at 50 or something, you know. So I'm still looking like I'm not retiring anytime soon, so I'm looking pretty far. Maybe I'll be 65 and retire like a normal 9-to-5 person.
Very nice, guys. So
What
we
about
come
you,
to
Holly?
Holly.
Which race do you want to do here?
Honestly, I'm excited for the Ocean Race Europe. I know it's the next thing, but I think it's going to be super fun. I mean, not sailing on it, just running it.
Right.
Sailing it, I picked something much easier. Maybe like a rally in the South Pacific or something. It'd be fun. I don't need to do this around the world stuff. I like to stop on my way, you know.
Like the Arc, you can do the Arc.
I could do the Arc. If that counts, I would pick that for sure. I'm more of a cruiser, you know. I like to like stop. I want to go on a hike. I want to swim, kite surf a bit. Like
you're right. You're right. We are the crazy person. You're the normal
I'm
person.
clever. You guys are mental.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So guys, we have our prize section. We actually have a special prize this week. We have been donated a very big prize from Frisch, one of our longest sponsors. They have donated a Subtech 100-litre sailing bag. Super nice. So thank you guys for that. So that is the prize that you guys can win this week. All the terms and conditions are in the bottom of this, as always, and you have to put the correct answer first in this chat, in the live chat. So the question is, what is the name of the most remote place in the ocean which Boris has not yet been past, and Will told me this earlier, in this race? So what is the name of the most remote place in the ocean which Boris has not yet been past in this race? put the answer correctly here, guys, and we will let you know who wins. And last week, the winner was Catherine Bunsak. So please email us, Catherine, and we will get you your prize. So it is the end of the show. Thank you guys so much. This has been really, really interesting. One of my favorites, actually. I really enjoyed analyzing and picking out the boats. And I think keep your eyes glued on the tracker, guys. We will be back next week for more insider tips. And thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. It was really nice to have you on the show. We will be back next week, same time, 6 p.m. Follow, like, subscribe, and you can follow everything, of course, on Instagram and YouTube. So thank you, guys. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.